she said we'd regret it. Her voice was calm, almost soft enough to disappear beneath the sound of the rain against the windows. But the way she looked at me when she said it, that stayed. I don't remember how long I stood there in her kitchen, pretending to look for a glass, pretending not to notice how close she was. The air felt heavier than it should have, coffee and rain and the faintest trace of her perfume, something like sandalwood and summer heat. Her name was Elena. She was my mother's friend, technically, though the way she spoke to me never quite fit into that category. She had a kind of poise that made silence feel deliberate, like she'd learned the weight of every word before ever saying it. When she smiled, it wasn't practiced. It was rare. Earned. "Are you sure you don't want to wait till the rain stops?" she asked, her tone light, eyes somewhere else. "I don't mind getting wet," I said. Too fast. Her lips curved, not a smile exactly, more like she'd heard something I hadn't meant to say. She turned toward the counter, reaching for her cup, the sleeve of her sweater brushing against my hand. Just fabric. Just air. And yet I forgot what I was supposed to do next. The cup clinked softly against the sink. "You shouldn't look at people the way you do," she said without turning. "How do I look at people?" She hesitated. "Like you're trying to memorize them." I wanted to laugh it off, to make it less than it was. But her voice had that unsteady quiet, the kind that only comes when someone's trying not to mean too much. I stepped back. She didn't move. There was a long pause, one of those fragile ones where sound feels like it might break something. Outside, the rain grew heavier. "I was supposed to leave an hour ago," I said. "You were," she murmured. And still, either of us did. The light flickered, just once, and her reflection rippled across the window. She turned slightly, and for the first time that evening, looked at me fully. There was something searching in her eyes, something between warning and invitation. "Do you ever wish you could unmeet someone?" she asked. "I think that depends on what meeting them cost you," I said. Elena exhaled, slow and quiet, as if that answer hurt a little. "You're too young to talk like that. Or maybe you've just forgotten what it's like," I said before I could stop myself. That made her laugh, one breath small, surprised. She shook her head, hair falling loose against her cheek. "You have no idea what you're doing," she whispered. She was right. I didn't. But I knew what I felt in that moment, the kind of pull that isn't about logic, or years, or what's right. Just gravity. Her hand brushed mine again, not by accident this time. The touch was brief, enough to burn and vanish in the same breath. "Elena, don't," she said softly, though her fingers stayed near. "Don't make me say something we can't take back." I wanted to answer, but my throat refused. The silence stretched, delicate, trembling. Then, a sudden knock at the front door. She flinched. I stepped back. Neither of us moved to answer it. For a heartbeat, we just stood there, suspended in everything that hadn't yet happened, the rain still falling, her eyes still on mine, and the echo of her words between us, "We'll regret it." Only now, I wasn't so sure. It was easier, after that night, to pretend nothing had happened. Or almost nothing. A week passed before I saw her again, same house, same quiet. My mother had invited a few neighbors for dinner, and Elena was there, helping in the kitchen like it was her own. She looked up when I entered, gave a small, polite nod, nothing more. But her eyes lingered half a second longer than they should have. I tried to be normal. I tried not to replay that look, the one that said she hadn't forgotten either. Later, when most people had gone, I found her on the porch, standing alone with a glass of wine. The sky was turning the color of ashes, and the crickets were loud enough to fill the silence between us. "You disappeared fast," I said quietly. She didn't turn. "You were surrounded." I didn't want to interrupt. "You wouldn't have," I said. A pause, faint and awkward. "You think that, because you don't know how this looks," she said finally. "You, here, with me, people notice." "I don't care what people notice." She looked at me then, sharp, like she wanted to believe it but couldn't. "You should." Her voice held that guarded edge I'd begun to recognize, the one built from too many disappointments, too many nights of pretending something didn't hurt. I wondered who had left her sounding that way. You talk like someone who's already regretted too much, I said. Elena smiled faintly, eyes on the horizon. Everyone has, she murmured. You just haven't lived long enough to name yours yet. The wind carried the faintest trace of her perfume again, same sandalwood warmth, and I hated how easily it pulled me back to her kitchen, to the space between us that hadn't closed since. I didn't mean to move closer. But when I did, she didn't step away. Her arm brushed against mine, light as breath. Does it bother you? I asked. What? When I look at you. She hesitated. Her hand tightened slightly around her glass. It should, she said, but her tone betrayed her. We stood there like that, not touching, but close enough that the air felt different. I wanted to ask her why she kept pretending this wasn't real, but then I noticed the way her fingers trembled, how she hid it by tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You're shaking, I said quietly. She laughed once too quickly. It's the wind. But it wasn't. The sound of footsteps came from inside, my mother's voice calling Elena's name. She exhaled, half relief, half something else. Before she turned to go, she touched my arm, just once, near the wrist. Her thumb brushed the inside of it, a gesture so brief it could have been accidental, except it wasn't. Go home, Daniel, she whispered. Before I forget, I'm supposed to be the careful one. She left me standing there, her warmth still pressed into my skin, the space between words closing in around everything we weren't saying. The next time it happened, it wasn't supposed to. It was late, another dinner, another evening that ran too long. My mother had gone to bed, leaving us to clean up what was left. The house had gone quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, and the occasional sound of dishes clinking under the faucet. Elena rolled her sleeves up, her wrist brushing mine as she passed the plate. You don't have to help, she said softly. I know. Then why are you? I shrugged, rinsing a glass I didn't need to rinse. Maybe I like staying after. She gave a small sound, not laughter, not disapproval. Something in between. Her reflection in the window caught my eye again. The faint light traced her face, softer than I remembered, and her hair had come loose from its clip. People would talk if they saw you here this late, she murmured. Let them. Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp, warning. You say that like it's nothing. I say that because it is. She opened her mouth to answer, but the sound of a phone vibrating broke the moment. It was hers. She dried her hands, checked the screen, and I caught the glimpse of a man's name, maybe someone from before, or someone who hadn't quite left. She silenced it quickly. Too quickly. Someone waiting on you? I asked. She hesitated. No one that matters. Then, quieter. Not anymore. The honesty in her tone undid something in me. I stepped closer without meaning to, the kind of small distance that feels like a question. She didn't step back. Daniel. My name left her lips differently this time, slower, unsure. You need to stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you're about to do something we can't take back. Her hand hovered over the counter, and I reached to set the glass beside it. My fingers grazed hers, nothing more than that, but the sound between us changed. The hum of the fridge seemed louder. The night seemed to hold its breath. She turned toward me, inches away now, her breath brushing against my neck. I could feel the warmth of her skin through the thin space between us. Neither of us moved, not really, but the silence swelled until it felt like a heartbeat. Then, the sound of footsteps upstairs. My mother's door creaked. We froze. Elena's eyes met mine, wide, startled, and then something else flickered there, panic, longing, guilt all tangled together. She whispered, Go. I can't, I said before I thought. You have to. But she didn't step away. Her hand reached out, catching the edge of my shirt as if to stop me from listening. Just a second. Just 1 second too long. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence again. The kind that holds 1,000 things unsaid. We stood there, close enough that I could see the tremor in her jaw, the way her throat tightened before she spoke. "Daniel," she whispered, "this has to stop." I nodded, but neither of us moved. If anything, she drew in a breath and leaned closer, until the space between our words disappeared. And though the kiss never came, the moment felt like it had, unfinished, suspended, a secret hanging in the air that neither of us knew how to return from. I tried to avoid her after that night, but pretending distance doesn't exist only makes it louder. Days stretched thin, full of things I didn't say. And then she texted, "Can you drop by?" Like nothing had happened. Her voice on the phone had been steady, practical. But when she opened the door, I saw it, the same hesitation, the same ache pretending to be composure. She'd been painting again. The smell of turpentine clung to the air, mixing with the faint scent of coffee. Sunlight spilled across her living room, warm and dusty, catching the edges of her hair. "I needed help moving something," she said. I nodded, though we both knew that wasn't why I was there. The canvas leaned half-finished against the wall, a field of color, uncertain where to go. She picked up a brush, dipped it in blue, then stopped halfway through the motion. "You ever start something," she said, eyes still on the paint, "and realize you don't have the right to finish it?" "Yeah," I said quietly. She turned then, studying me. "And what do you do with it?" "I keep showing up anyway." Her breath caught, almost a laugh, almost not. "Daniel," she began, but the word broke apart halfway. I stepped closer, drawn by something I couldn't reason with. Her hand, still holding the brush, trembled slightly. I reached out, not for the brush, but for her wrist, steadying it. She froze, looking down at where our skin met. Paint streaked my thumb blue against her pulse. "You should go," she whispered, though she didn't move. "Tell me to mean it." Her lips parted, a soft exhale. "Don't make this harder. You already have." Her eyes lifted, and for a second, everything went quiet, no distance, no caution, no years. Just breath and the sound of rain starting outside again, faint at first. I reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered longer than they should have, tracing the curve behind her ear. Her eyes closed, barely, as if surrendering for one stolen second. Then she stepped forward. Just enough that her shoulder touched my chest, the warmth of her body fitting too naturally into the space between us. My hand moved to her back, instinct, not thought. "Daniel," she said again, voice lower now, almost shaking. "What?" "If you say my name like that again, I won't be able to stop." The confession hung between us, heavy and fragile. Outside, thunder cracked, sudden and close. She flinched, her hand catching mine. We both looked up, startled by the sound, by everything it covered for a moment. Her breath brushed my jaw, her fingers tightening around mine. And then, a knock at the door. We both froze, hearts still in motion, the world crashing back in. Elena looked toward the sound, then back at me, eyes full of everything we almost let happen. Either of us spoke. But the distance we'd fought to keep, it was gone now, replaced by something neither of us could name, standing there in the echo of what nearly was. The next morning, everything felt wrong, the air heavier, the silence unfamiliar. I hadn't planned to see her again so soon. But when I walked past her house that evening, the door was open. Voices carried from inside, my mother's and Elena's, low and tense. "You didn't tell him?" my mother's voice asked. "I was going to," Elena said. "It wasn't. I didn't mean to listen, but I did." My mother sighed. "You know how he looks at you." "If he finds out, I know," Elena whispered. "It's already gone too far." The words landed hard. I backed away before they could notice me, but her voice followed me down the street, soft, regretful, like a promise breaking in real time. Later that night she texted, "Come by. Please." When I arrived, she looked different, hair tied back, eyes tired, as though she'd spent the day rehearsing a truth she didn't want to speak. "I heard you," I said quietly. Her breath caught. Daniel, you said it's gone too far. Her shoulders sank. It has. I stepped closer, feeling the space narrow between us again. Then tell me what you were going to say. She looked away. I was married longer than I should have been. He left last year. And since then Her voice broke, then steadied. Your mother asked me to keep an eye on you when you moved back. That's how this started. You weren't supposed to. She exhaled sharply. You weren't supposed to matter like this. The words hit harder than I expected. So this was pity? No, she said quickly. It was everything but that. We stood there, too close for the conversation we were having. Her hands fidgeted, twisting the edge of her sleeve. I told myself I was being kind, she said, quieter now. But kindness turned into something else. I stepped toward her. She didn't retreat. You can't keep saying this isn't real, I said. It can't be, she whispered, her eyes glistening. You think it's beautiful now, but in 6 months you'll see it for what it is, a mistake that cost too much. Her words trembled, but her body didn't move away. I could see her pulse at her throat, fast, uneven. I raised a hand, hesitating before brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She flinched, not from fear, but from everything behind it. Elena, I said softly, you don't get to decide what I regret. Her breath caught again. You sound just like him, she murmured, and I froze. Like who? My ex, she said. He used to say that right before he walked out. Silence. Then she took one step closer, her hand finding my wrist, trembling, warm, desperate. Maybe this is another mistake, she whispered, but it's one I can't stop making. And before I could answer, she pressed her forehead against mine. Not a kiss, not yet, but everything inside me felt like falling. Outside, somewhere far away, thunder rolled again. But neither of us moved. The world had already shifted. The night was quiet when I returned. The kind of quiet that presses against the walls, waiting to be broken. Elena didn't turn when I entered. She was standing near the window, the faint glow from the streetlight tracing her outline. Her shoulders were tense, her arms crossed as if to hold herself together. You shouldn't be here, she said without looking. I know, I said, closing the door behind me. But neither should you feel like this alone. She laughed under her breath, brittle, low. You think this is loneliness? It's something worse, I said. It's pretending you don't want something you already do. That made her look at me. Her eyes, tired, angry, afraid, met mine, and for the first time, she didn't try to hide any of it. Don't, she whispered. Don't make me choose between what I want and what I can live with. I took a step closer. Then another. The space between us pulsed like a heartbeat. She didn't move, but her breath hitched, just slightly, and that was enough. Her voice softened. You'll wake up one day and wonder what this cost you. I already know, I said. And I still came back. The confession hung there, unpolished, raw. Her eyes shimmered, the light catching in them. You don't understand, she said. I've built a life out of staying quiet. Out of choosing the safer thing. Then stop choosing safe, I said. Just for tonight. The words caught something inside her. I saw it happen. Her lips parted, a small breath escaping. I reached for her, slow, deliberate, my fingers brushing her arm first, then her shoulder. She didn't pull away. The air between us thickened, her scent, the warmth radiating off her skin, the way her hand rose halfway, uncertain, before resting lightly against my chest. Daniel, she said, my name breaking into 2 syllables, almost fragile. I leaned in just enough for her to feel my breath when I spoke. Tell me to stop. Her eyes closed. Her hand trembled against me. I can't. We stood there, suspended between what we wanted and what we shouldn't. I could hear her heartbeat. Maybe it was mine. Then she exhaled, a sound halfway between surrender and sorrow, and pressed her forehead to mine. The closeness was unbearable. Every breath, every movement, felt like it could unravel everything. My hand slid to her waist, her pulse quick beneath my thumb. She whispered, "This changes everything." "I know." And still, she leaned in. The kiss didn't come immediately, it hovered, trembling at the edge of decision. Then, suddenly, she drew back, eyes wide, the reality flooding in. "If we do this," she said quietly, "there's no going back. I never wanted to." For a long moment, she studied me, searching for doubt, finding none. Then, finally, she nodded, a small, silent surrender. And in that single motion, everything that had been waiting between us finally broke. They say understanding comes with distance. But for us, it came in that breathless, wordless space where either of us pretended anymore. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The air between us still carried the weight of everything unsaid. Her breath came shallow, and mine followed it, two rhythms trying to find their way back to calm. "If we do this," she had said, but we already had, in every way that mattered. The words, the glances, the silence, it was all a slow confession neither of us could take back. "Elena," I murmured, stepping closer. "We already crossed that line the moment we stopped pretending." Her eyes softened, wet at the corners. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," I said, and reached for her hand. My thumb brushed the back of it, tracing the small veins that told me she was real. But maybe being scared means it's real enough to matter. For a second, she looked like she might pull away, habit, caution, the instinct to protect herself. But instead, she exhaled, long and tired, and let her fingers fold around mine. No words followed. They didn't need to. The quiet that settled wasn't sharp anymore. It was gentle, the kind that fills the spaces between two people who have finally stopped fighting what's already true. She leaned into me, slow, deliberate, resting her forehead against my chest. I felt her sigh, heavy, trembling, and wrapped my arms around her. Her voice came small, almost lost against my shirt. "You're too young to be this sure." I smiled faintly. Maybe I just finally found something worth being sure about. That made her laugh, just barely, a soft, broken sound that still somehow held warmth. "You don't make this easy," she said. "Neither do you," I said. "But maybe that's the point." When she finally looked up, I saw it, not the fear or the guilt, but the quiet acceptance behind her eyes. The kind that doesn't need a promise or a label, only the truth of this moment. Her fingers brushed the side of my face, tracing my jaw before stopping at my lips. "You make me feel like I still have time," she said softly. "You do," I whispered. "So do I." We stayed there, standing close enough for the world to disappear. Her head tilted slightly, our foreheads touching again, the most fragile kind of closeness, but the truest one yet. There was no need for more. No dramatic declaration. Just the steady rhythm of her breathing against mine, her hand still in my chest, and the quiet promise that maybe, for now, this was enough. Outside, the night hummed faintly, the world moving on as if nothing had changed. But between us, everything had. When she finally spoke again, her tone was light, almost teasing. "So what now?" "No," I said. "We stopped pretending we were ever meant to walk away." And for the first time, she didn't argue. She just smiled, small, certain, and leaned in until all that was left was warmth, and the quiet certainty that we were no longer standing on opposite sides of maybe.